So before we get into today's video, the cane that you see right here is proof that I myself messed around and found out. So I want to start the video off by saying lately I've been in a rut, not creatively, just spiritually. I've been in a place where I didn't feel good. And I found myself thinking about one particular person in my life. And strangely enough, all of the things that I'm going to be talking about today in this video that strengthened my resolve all have something to do with her. And it actually started with me hurting my back. Or as a matter of fact, it started with me getting RSV. About 2, maybe 3 weeks ago, closer to 3 weeks ago, I ended up becoming ill, shivering, night terrors, fever, couldn't breathe, super congested. It felt like I was drowning when I was just trying to breathe. And my family and friends made me go to the hospital. Get to the hospital, they check me out. It originally comes back as I have strep throat. After all of that said and done, I'm trying to recover from that. And then I'm worried about my jobs. Like, I have multiple jobs and I need those jobs. So I'm worried about the jobs that I have. And with that being said, I'm not caring too much about what's going on with me physically. I'm just trying to take this medicine so I can get back to my jobs, get back to working and getting this bread, right? So I would say throughout that whole time, that's probably the most I've sat down in probably like 2-3 years. In all honesty, like going on 3 years, that's probably the most I ever sat down. And I can honestly say I felt sad. And there was this big gaping hole in my chest. And I just felt sad all the time. And even when it was happy moments, like I would be happy for that moment, then poof, it would be gone. I'd be sad again. And that whole time I was missing my grandmother. That's the only thing that I could think of. I really miss my grandmother. And to explain the relationship that me and my grandmother had with each other, I'd have to explain to you just why I had such a close relationship with my grandmother in the first place. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings, but all of us were born 10 years apart. So for a vast majority of my young life, I was the only child. I didn't get another sibling until I was 10, and throughout that whole 10 years, it was rare for me to be away from my grandmother. Me being her youngest grandchild and being the child of her youngest child, I really got to spend a lot of time with my grandmother one-on-one because a lot of my cousins were older. So in essence, my grandmother was like a second mom for me. We lived in the same house for a majority of the time, and even when we didn't, like when my parents first moved back to Chicago, we lived around the corner from my grandmother. So it was never a time where I didn't see my grandmother. And when you become an adult, you go into the world, you find your place. And I spent a long amount of time figuring out who I was and just what I was doing. With that being said, I've been in this house that I live in right here almost 8 years. My grandmother died a few months before I was able to get this house. So she never even seen me move into my first house, and like she pretty much lived with me in almost every house I had lived in up until that point. And that saddens me. But one thing I can take from that whole situation with my grandmother is even if a person leaves you, their spirit never really leaves you. The things that they taught you never really leaves you. So that's always a good thing. But back to the story. I was missing my grandmother, and then I got sick. I had to sit down for a few days. But no sooner than I finished taking the medicine for my sickness did I go back to working multiple jobs. Go back to sleeping maybe 1-2 hours a day. And probably by the third day, that's when this guy comes in. that third day, I got off of one of my jobs, and I was supposed to be getting ready for another one, and I could barely walk. Like, it was a terrible pain that I've never felt before in my life. And that pain, like, sent me to the emergency room. There was no doubt about it. That was it for me. I was done. It was up and it was stuck. I was about to make it to the upper room. And all I could keep thinking about was my grandmother. That whole entire time. My grandmother. And also, this is it. Whatever I did to my body this time around, I was no longer going to be able to work multiple jobs. And in all honesty, after I got sick the first time, before my back started messing up, I said I was going to slow down. And I didn't mean it. I had no intentions of slowing down. So I guess that was, a higher being's way of saying, sit down before I sit you down. Because the more you fuck around, the more you find out. And I'm in the emergency room. Of course, my sister, my right hand, she ends up meeting me at the emergency room and sit with me the entire time in horrible pain. I was in so much pain, I thought I was having a heart attack, and it was actually just an asthma attack. And I've had asthma since forever, but that asthma attack was different. It felt different. It wasn't even on the right side for me to have a heart attack. It wasn't, but I was scared to death that I was about to have a heart attack, on top of my back hurting. The pain in my back was hurting so bad, like it radiated. So I felt it in my stomach, in my chest. Every time I moved, it hurt. And when I sat down, it hurt even more. Like, I'm in the emergency room just tweaking out. No Jello ball. And I finally get to the back. They start giving me the medicines. They take me to get a CAT scan to make sure everything is good. They're checking all of my levels. I'm there all night. My mom and my sister end up being there with me. And they check all of my levels. Everything's good outside of they found a condition. I really don't know what it's called. I'd have to look it up to tell you guys. But basically, I have a condition where one of my arteries is actually being pulled against by a piece of ligament. The doctor told me that it's not something that has to be taken care of right now, but it needs to be taken care of. And I think my weight is causing some issues with that. So that's going to be a whole nother struggle for me, trying to get my weight down so I could be able to get this surgery. But other than that, the only thing they could find with my pain in my back was just, I strained my back. I pulled a muscle. I live on pain pills at this point. Right now, they've given me so much pain medicine. It's crazy. I've got like 2 pain medicines, a muscle relaxer, and apparently they gave me some boo-boo chews, is what I like to call them, because you get constipated once you take all of these pain medicines. When I started to get a little, well, not even a little bit of mobility, because those first 3 days, I was hurt. I was hurt bad, so bad, those first 3 days. And I really couldn't do a whole lot for myself. I couldn't lay down. It hurt to stand up for too long. I couldn't bend over. Luckily, I didn't have to sit down on the toilet because I was constipated. But outside of that, I couldn't eat. It was just so uncomfortable. I couldn't feel at peace. And that's what made me really say, hey, I'm going to sit myself down. But things started coming together with that, with me just missing my grandmother. And it starts to make me realize that my grandmother is all around me. And I say that because I'm going to show you 4 things that really lifted my spirits in this tough time. Now, mind you, I'm missing money. I'm trying to go back to work. I've been off for almost a week now. But 4 main things that had me feeling like maybe I needed this time to calm myself down, and also to make me realize that I have my grandmother with me. The first thing that I want to show you guys is this chair behind me, but that's paired up with this perfume. This perfume belonged to my grandmother. I don't know where I get this cap from. I don't think that cap goes on this perfume, but I don't care. This perfume is this product perfume that my grandmother would wear, and it smells just like her. It's hers. And when it gets really bad and I really miss her, I lay down on this couch that I got from her house. So that couch right back here that I've shot so many podcasts on. Like, if you guys are familiar with the channel or some of my other channels, you've seen that couch. And yeah, I'm never getting rid of that couch because that was my grandmother's couch. I love that couch. Also, you've probably seen it in a few videos, but from time to time, I'll wear this. And this right here is my grandmother's ashes. So whenever I'm going somewhere important where I feel like I need a little more support, I always put this on and carry my grandmother's ashes with me just to keep her with me. Because my grandmother was a fearless lady, man. You wouldn't believe it. I wish I could show you. I really do. But, and the last thing out of the four is this cane right here. My mother uses this cane, and it was actually in her car. And my sister came to help me out for a little bit. And when she came, I was like, did mom leave one of her canes in the car? Like, tell her to let me use it. Can I have one? So my sister goes back, asks my mom, comes back, brings me this cane. At the time, I did not know it was my grandmother's cane. But after she gave it to me, my mother called and said, put me on speaker. So when she puts me on speaker, puts my mom on speaker, hey, that's my mother's cane. Don't lose it. Put it frankly, mama, I couldn't lose it if I tried. I can't walk without it. So I've been using this to get around for the last few days. And this whole experience has brought me even closer to my grandmother. And I just wanted to sit down and have a talk with you guys. And just to let you know that, yeah, at the age of 38, I almost killed myself. Threw my back out, caught a disease, and then still refused to stop working 2.5 jobs. But one thing I can say is the universe will sit you down if it needs to. And man, remember all the times you had with somebody. There'll be bits and pieces of them that will be with you forever. And I just wanted to fill you guys in to what was going on with me. So with that being said, see you on the next video. Peace. Love you guys.